In search of the wild horses of Louisiana. Yes, indeed, Louisiana has wild horses. Actually, very few people know about them, including the folks who live in Louisiana. If you search for wild horses of Louisiana online, you will find very little information. The wild horses are living in the Kisatchie National Forest and on parts of Fort Johnson, which was formerly known as Fort Polk. The Kisatchie National Forest website does not mention wild horses at all, and there is only one single sentence referring to feral horses on the Fort Johnson website. We believe that there are two main reasons why these horses are relatively unknown. First, forested areas make them less visible, and military training grounds are often closed to the general public. Have you ever observed wild horses in heavily forested areas? Here is a short video I made of some wild horses in the Carson National Forest in New Mexico. They are highly camouflaged, they move quickly, and they go deeper into the woods to hide. Then they sneak out to take a peep at the humans with cameras, but they are very skittish. Wild horses have a strong survival instinct and flee from danger. As you can see, forest horses present quite a challenge to photographers. The horses on the land owned by Fort Johnson can be seen, however, grazing on vast open meadows. Unfortunately, the general public is not allowed to freely roam the land because it is often used by the military for combat training. A large tract of land called Pison Ridge can be used by hunters and visitors on certain days, and a schedule is posted online by the military and Forestry Service. There is close collaboration between these two governmental agencies along with the Louisiana Department of Fish and Wildlife, who require people to have permits to visit wildlife management areas, commonly called WMAs. Within this area is the Fort Johnson North WMA, formerly known as the Pison Ridge WMA. It sounds confusing, and it is. As a habitat for wild horses, it can be daunting for humans who want to visit the area and to find them. In June of 2023, I had the opportunity to visit Pison Ridge, and I encountered at least 100 horses. They are definitely there. The Kisatchie National Forest consists of 5 ranger districts and encompasses approximately 604,000 acres. People visit the area for camping, hiking, biking, ATV riding, horseback riding, fishing, boating, and hunting. There are over 50 camping areas and hiking trails in this vast area. Among the 5 districts, wild horses can be found in the Calcasieu District and the Kisatchie District. Throughout the United States, there are many herds of wild horses that are managed by the Forestry Service, a division of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. However, Kisatchie has no wild horse management plan. In a conversation with the head wildlife biologist, Mr. Smith told me that the focus of his program is endangered species like the red-cockaded woodpecker and Louisiana pine snake and the containment of wild boar. He validated that the horses have not presented a problem on forest lands. Evidently, they have not multiplied to the level of an invasive force. Wild horses in other areas have been known to hang out in campgrounds to scavenge for food or even block traffic, but this has not happened in Louisiana. It can accurately be stated then that the wild horse population does not exceed the carrying capacity of the environment. When that happens, animals starve and ecosystems are depleted. So, there is currently an amiable coexistence between the wild horses and their environment. Mr. Smith did state that if the horses become a nuisance, then a management plan would have to be established. He also stated that they have encountered horses and donkeys that appear to have been released into the forest. There is no fencing, and the 5 districts are interspersed with private land. The horses that roam Fort Johnson's land, however, did become a nuisance according to the U.S. Army. It was alleged that they were creating problems for the military to successfully conduct their training. Horses were rounded up as early as the 1990s, but after 2010, the Army started on a plan to remove over 700 wild horses. You might wonder how they could just make this arbitrary decision because of the Wild Horse and Burro Protection Act of 1971. That law does not pertain to other government agencies like the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, Forestry Service, and the U.S. Armed Forces. The military personnel at Fort Johnson choose the word feral as opposed to wild in an effort to negate the impact of the protection law. The word feral is used on their website, and they have requested the Forestry Service to also use the term feral. If you don't know the difference, the word feral indicates that the animal was once domesticated but has adapted to living without human assistance. Here at Grace Winds, we make no distinction between the words because a feral animal is existing in a natural setting on his own. The first group of 50 captured horses went to the Humane Society of North Texas. In 2016, a lawsuit was filed to stop the removal, protecting the wild horses. Evidence was presented which indicated that the Army was allowing people to remove the horses in a haphazard and harmful manner. Evidence was also presented proving that the horses were valuable colonial Spanish horses, as well as cultural resources for the local people of Louisiana. The lawsuit was initiated by the Pegasus Equine Guardian Association, or PEGA, led by Amy Hanchy. It was handled by the Tulane University Law School in New Orleans. The legal battle was finally settled in 2019. PEGA lost its case in court, but the Army had to conduct an environmental assessment required by military protocol. They continued to remove horses, and sadly, many horses were taken by disreputable organizations. Many horses died, and the fate of other horses remain a mystery to this day. As of 2022, PEGA was able to take possession of approximately 100 horses from the organizations that mismanage the Kisatchie horses. At Grace Winds, we adopted Shiloh, Jude, and Silas, who are products of the former mismanagement where the stallions were not properly separated from the mares. The last removal of horses occurred in 2021. Only 2 were removed at that time. Is it possible that the Army could reinstate removals? Absolutely. If you wish to see these horses protected, please follow PEGA on Facebook. They serve as a watchdog for these valuable wild horses. As we researched into the history of the wild horses of the Kisatchie, there is evidence that the Native Americans actually had horses before the Spanish arrived in the New World. In 1614, documents prove that the Spanish explorer De Soto traveled up the Sabine River and traded horses with Native Americans. It is also documented that bison, fondly called buffalo, wintered in central Louisiana, so they were followed by prairie tribes who were notorious horsemen. Louisiana wild horses predated statehood, which happened in 1812. It has been fondly theorized, too, that many cavalry horses were released into the Kisatchie after the Louisiana maneuvers of 1941. In that year, prior to the U.S. entry into World War II, the cavalry actually competed against mechanized tanks and vehicles. The machines won, and it is alleged that some cavalry horses were just released into the Kisatchie. Local historian Ricky Robertson says that some of the beautiful wild horses on Pison Ridge resemble some of the beautiful cavalry mounts that he remembers. So, is it possible to find the wild horses of the Kisatchie? Well, the public information officer of the Kisatchie National Forest told me that people do report sightings of the horses. As stated earlier, forest horses can be quite elusive. However, the Army hosts an annual heritage tour to commemorate the local history of Pison Ridge. Through eminent domain in 1940, many families were displaced from their land. Across the terrain, there are cemeteries and remains of old homesteads in addition to the wild horses. The area has great historical and cultural value. Ricky Robertson told me that he would encourage wild horse enthusiasts to contact Fort Johnson to sign up for the annual Heritage Tour. He no longer leads the tour, but it is still an annual event where people can see these amazing horses as well as learn about a time gone by. Mr. Ricky says that the wild horses are part of his heritage. His grandfather worked at the Pison Ridge lumber mill back in the 1920s, and he and his father were cattlemen. He grew up there and recalls when he and his father would ride out to check on the cattle, and they would see wild horses out there grazing too. Imagine what a sight.